Morning, everybody. Formally, and good morning to y'all. Hope y'all had a good week. Best you can be. I think it's going to get hot again. Somebody, is that what they're saying? Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's what me and Tucker was talking about. There's always something to be grateful for. I mean, y'all all can see me. And I'm telling you right now, that's a blessing for more than one reason. But you got eyesight. You can walk. Some of you can't walk that good, but you can move and you can, I mean, I've been to places where that's not the case for a lot of people. So anyways, we're going to get right to work. You go to Ephesians chapter 6. Ephesians chapter 6, we're going to start in verse 10. And I don't know, we're going to dive into this. We're going to see where it goes. Because I've kind of been all over the place with this sermon. Ephesians chapter 6, starting at verse 10. And while you're finding your spot, Ephesians was written by Paul. It was one of his, I guess you could call it prison epistles, because he wrote it from jail cell. But when we come to Ephesians 6:10, and many of you know this, and I've preached this section of Scripture a lot, but it's something that's so true to all of us. What is it about? What is Ephesians 6:10 about? Anybody know? Spiritual warfare. The armor of God. And spiritual battles that we all fight. And you know what's interesting is, and I'll tell y'all this, I don't know how y'all feel about black magic and Wicca and stuff, but if you look and you notice, it's really popular. You know, I had a list of stuff I forgot at the house, so I won't try to remember it because I can't remember nothing. But it was about how many paranormal and demonic and possessions and all this stuff that really just grabs our attention, right? I mean, we just celebrated Halloween. I don't know if you celebrate that. You just do Halloween. I don't know if you celebrate that, but one thing about it, and I'm not hating on Halloween. I really wish I could have been here for a fall festival. Y'all ain't saved me no candy. Somebody got to answer for that. Anyways, moving on. But one thing about it is, there is a spiritual side to everything, right? You are a spirit. There is a spiritual battle going on in your life. And this is what Paul's talking about. We're going to read this. We'll unpack it a little bit. Verse 10 of Ephesians chapter 6. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. Verse 11. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle, verse 12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, verse 13, take unto you the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. So just to stop there for a second, and this is something so many people overlook, there's two realities here, right? There is a reality that we are in a spiritual battle. This is not a parable. This is not a metaphor. You are in a spiritual battle. Everybody in here that hears my voice, you're in a spiritual battle. You say, Brother Ricky, I don't believe in none of this. I just got drug here. Let me tell you, you're still in a spiritual battle. You're just fighting for the wrong team, right? You're just fighting for the wrong team. You're in this battle. There's no bench warmers. There's no option, right? You're in this battle. You are under attack. And we're going to look at this in the enemies that we have, right? But to understand this, we need to understand what? One, that you have an enemy. For one, that you're in a battle. That I can't stress that enough. If you don't know that you're in a war, you know, has anybody ever been in a fight and got cheap-shotted? You just kind of didn't know you was in a fight until you got hit. Right, that's never happened to me. I've always been kind of people like me, and I had about 5 brothers that was bigger than me. So I can always kind of duck and dodge that. But if you don't know that you're in a fight, what's going to happen? It ain't going to go well for you, right? If you don't know that you're in a battle, what's going to happen? It's not going to go well. So I'm trying to tell you, you're in a battle, right? Write that down. Remember that. Number 2, we have an enemy. Amen? And right here, if you go to verse 11, it says, putting on the whole armor of God. And we're going to talk about the armor of God. Putting on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the what? Now, there's 2 words here you need to understand. Wiles, right, really comes from the Greek word, I can't pronounce it, but it means kind of trickery, schemes. Some translations might say schemes of the devil, the wiles of the devil, the trickery, the strategies, the plots of the devil, right? So you need to understand this, that if we're called to put on the armor of God that we may be able to withstand against the wiles of the devil, there is wiles of the devil that he's using on you. There's trickery, deception. The devil is the father of deception. We're going to talk about that some more. But these wiles, you need to be able to pay attention to them, right? One thing about the wiles of the devil, and I'll read this definition to you, and it goes, methodia, which is the Greek word for wiles, is diverse trickery, and this is really more targeted, right? Now you imagine the devil cannot read your mind. I don't know if you've been told otherwise, but you'll never find nowhere in the Bible where the devil reads somebody's mind or he influences, he can influence you. We're going to talk about that. But as far as knowing your mind, God knows the thoughts of man. He knows your thoughts. He knows the intent of your heart. That's the scary thing. The Bible tells us we'll be held accountable for every idle word spoken, right? So moving on. Will you go to me? We're going to talk about the devil, right? What you don't know is me calling her. Tricks on it. No, go with me. Well, we're at verse 11. But we're going to talk about this, right? Now, what is this word? The devil, right? That's your enemy. And let me tell you something. He hates you. Now, there is a misconception. I told y'all before, I was at the place I was working for, Tornado destroyed it, at Piggly Wiggly in Amory. There was people in the back room watching that show Lucifer, right? And if you never watch it, don't watch it, right? Don't watch it. But they depict the devil as like this charming, good guy kind of, and there's Wicca religion kind of teaches different stuff. But we're going to look at this, right? And if you'll go with me or you stay where you are, we're going to talk about the devil, because that's not our only enemy, but he is the chief enemy, right? He's the leader of the enemies, if you will. So we're going to talk about this. From the beginning, go to Ezekiel 28, chapter 28, verse 12 through 19. And Tucker's going to pop this up, and you bear with him, because I didn't give him any kind of... He said, hey, what verses do we need to do and everything? And, man, I got like 70 of them. I try to condense them, but my mind runs all over the place. But Ezekiel 28, verse 12 through 19. Now, this is important to note, right? And listen to this. Son of man, take up a what? Lamentation. Now, what does that mean? Good, we'll come back to it. Right? Great weeping. The book of Lamentations, prophet, Jeremiah was a prophet, a weeping prophet. Anyways, moving on. Upon the king of Tyrus, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord God, Thou stillest up the sum, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Now listen to this, verse 13. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was thy covering. The what? And look, now notice that these are mentioned in Revelation 12. We'll talk about that here in a second. But these are also mentioned in Revelation, right? And we could just move on past that. Listen to this. In the what? Carbonate. And we're going to talk about that. That's a really, really fine, and it kind of goes with gold. And if you see it, it's almost as strong as steel. And it says, in gold, in the workmanship of thy tabrets and thy pipes was... Now, what is he talking about here? That's where we get the musician part. You ever heard Satan was the chief musician? And pipes were prepared in thee in the day that thou was created. Verse 14. Thou art anointed cherub. And what is that word? Cherub. That's an angel. Remember in the Garden of Eden? What was you going to say? Yeah. And if y'all know it, y'all yell at me, right? Y'all yell at me. Don't yell at me too. I can't hear out this here anyways. So, thou covered, and I have set thee so, thou was upon the holy mountain of God. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Now remember that verse right there. Tucker, if you go to Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. Now, the interesting thing about the devil in the Old Testament, most of what we know about the devil comes from the New Testament. There's these few verses I'm reading to you, and the serpent in the Garden of Eden that was cunning and kind of deceived Eve first, and then Eve talked her husband into it. But deceived Eve and Adam. But when we talk about the devil, we need to understand, and this is one of the primary verses, verse 12, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? Now remember, Lucifer, what does Lucifer mean? Yeah, more so, the morning star, right? And you'll see this referenced in Revelation. The morning star fell from, but O Lucifer, son of the morning, how art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations, right? This is important. And you could go on, Tucker, to verse 13. Remember, weaken the nations. For thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Verse 14. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like what? The Most High. And you remember what Job tells us about Satan. The pride was his fault. He wanted what God had. He wanted to be God, essentially. He rebelled against God. 2/3 of the angels rebelled against God, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then they got cast out of heaven, but they rebelled against God. So think about this. If the devil can talk 2/3 of the angels in heaven to rebel against God, imagine the influence he has on you. Now listen, Christians cannot be demon-possessed. I will stand on this, right? Because we have the Spirit of God in us, and the Holy Spirit will not share his residence with anybody. We are the temple of God. That being said, and we're going to talk about that. I got a verse for that. We're going to talk about that. But also, you can be influenced by the devil. You say, Brother Ricky, how so? Have you not read where Jesus said, Peter said, let these things not be so. What did Jesus say to Peter? Get thee behind me. What? Satan. And was he saying that Peter was possessed by the devil? Of course not. What he was saying, he was influenced. We're going to talk about this influence some more. We're going to talk about this influence some more. Go to Revelation chapter 12, verse 7 through 10. Revelation chapter 12, verse 7 through 10. I'm trying to show you this because I want you to know this is a real thing. You know, I told y'all before, and let me say this and I won't talk about it no more. There was 2 women walking down the road. Have I told y'all this before? I can't remember. I was driving down the road, right? I seen this younger lady and an older woman. They was mother and daughter. Anyways, I was like, man, they was carrying a bunch of stuff, Walmart bags and stuff. So I said, I'll pick them up. This was like 5 years ago. But anyways, I picked them up and said, where y'all going? They said, we live down here, and it was that right down the road and stuff. Anyways, long story short, one of them was an Orthodox Jew, and the other one practiced Wicca. And then I was a Christian, right? It sounds like a bad joke, don't it? But it really happened. Now, through the praise and glory of God, everybody got converted over a time span. But she was talking to me. Her mother was, and when I say Orthodox Jew, like she wouldn't eat certain things. I mean, she was ceremonially, she tried to keep the letter of the law. And that was easy to talk to her because, the whole New Testament's about Jews versus Gentiles. So I knew plenty to talk to her. But her daughter practiced Wicca. And her mission was to convert me to the Wicca religion. And that's like, yeah, man, I'm telling you, that gets down there. But she was talking to me about it one day and she was showing me, she had a Wicca Bible, and I went to a Wicca meeting. Now, I'll tell you what, that was kind of scary. Because I went to this place, and it was like 10 women in a circle, and they was praying and holding hands with candles. It was like off of a movie. And right then, I decided I might have messed up. And I rode with her, too. That was the worst part. So I said, man. And I went out in the middle of the woods. I said, this is how it starts off in the movies, where I end up running through the woods, But Lord willing, thank God I didn't end up dying, and she got baptized. And look, let me tell you this. I didn't know that she got baptized. I never could reach her. But I met her in Walmart one day, and she showed me a picture. She goes to First Baptist Church in Amory, and she got baptized. She got saved, and she said it was because, nothing I said, it was because I never really gave up on her. I would text her Bible verses, call her, invite her to church. I'd do all kind of stuff. But she got baptized, and now she sings in the choir at First Baptist Church. And she was hugely in Wicca. Her mother ended up getting saved and left the Jewish community, and she goes to the same church. Anyways, moving on. Verse 12, and there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the what? The dragon. And who is that? The devil. And you say, Brother Rick, how do you know that? I'm glad you asked. I'll tell you. fought against fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought against, and the dragon fought in his angels. Verse 8, and prevailed not, neither was there found any more found, I'm getting cross-eyed up here, neither was there place found any more in heaven. Verse 9, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called who? The devil. And Satan, which deceiveth who? The whole world. He was cast out into where? Uh-oh. And his angels was cast out with him. Now this is point number 3 or 4, whatever point I'm on. The devil is not right now in chains in hell, trapped. This is important. Now we know in Revelation that there will be the millennial reign of Christ where he will be bound into the lake of fire. But the devil is roaming to and fro on the earth. Have you not read in Job? God asked Satan, where have you been? And what did he say? I've been to and fro, roaming the earth. I've been walking up and down the earth. When Jesus talks in John chapter 14, what does he say? The prince of the world has been judged. He's roaming around, and the influence of him is real. How does the devil work, you may say? Go to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 2. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 2. This is important right here. I'm going to get my pen. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 2. Look at this. Wherein times past you walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air. This is talking about Satan. The prince of the power of the air. The spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. So you need to understand, the devil influences us. How so? Through temptations, through talking. He did not twist Adam and Eve's arm and make them eat of the fruit and rebel against God, did he? The Bible don't even tell us that he touched them. He didn't even touch Adam and Eve, and he literally made all of mankind fall into sin. He didn't twist the angels of the arms of the angels in heaven and make them rebel against God. He persuaded them. He influenced them. He talked them into it, in other words. That's what the wiles of the devil mean, the cunning trickery of the devil. He'll come to you and whisper, and if you're not careful, 1 John tells us, test the spirits to see if they are God. Sometimes you think it's God, but it's not. I mean, you see that all throughout the Bible. You see that in real life. People say, God okayed it. I don't feel conviction about it. I knew a man that cheated on his wife, and he was a preacher. And he said that he doesn't feel conviction about it. He don't feel, because him and his wife argued and stuff. He said, I feel like God's, I said, no, man. I mean, and I lost him as a friend. Never talked to me again. But I said, it's not the Spirit of God. God's not telling you to get a hotel room with a strange woman while your wife's at home. Anyways, moving on. Prince of the power of the air. So he works through what? The children of disobedience. He works through people. Does he not? People say, why does so much evil in the world happen? It's because evil people happen. Evil people work. I told y'all about the friend last week that said, why can't God just snap his fingers and do away with evil? I said, if God could snap his fingers and do away with evil, would you want him to? He said, yeah. I said, would you be here the second after he snapped his fingers? The reality is, evil things happen, but it's because of evil people. That demonic, what's that real good hunting? That guy said the devil told him to do it. Anyway, he killed his whole family with like a sledgehammer. I should have looked that up, but moving on. This is important. So you see that there is a real enemy. And you know he got wiles, and you know the devil. Now this is where we come into this. We'll go through a few of these real quick. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. Y'all bear with me. I know we're going through a lot of verses, but I really want you to see this. I mean, I could tell you this, but the Bible is where the power is. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. Look at this. Be sober, be vigilant. Why? Because your adversary, the who? The devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may, what? Devour. The devil's roaming around. He's seeing whom he may devour. He wants you for lunch. You remember what Jesus told Peter? Peter, Satan has desired you. Essentially, he said, he's prayed for you, man. To what? He wants to sift you as wheat. You ever sifted wheat before? All the old people in here know what I'm talking about. Right? You do that? Right? I ain't never did it. I looked up a video so I know what it meant, but I thank the Lord I don't do that. But he's seeking whom he may devour. He's roaming around like a lion. That's strong language, isn't it? That's why we're told, be sober, be vigilant. You need to be paying attention, man. You're in a war, pay attention. Wear that armor, right? We're going to get to that armor too. So look at this right here. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4. And we just got a few more on this. Listen to this right here. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4. And this one is really important. Write it down, remember it, underline it. Because, again, Paul's talking about this. And look at this. In whom the God of this world, who's that talking about? Satan. Now, how you know this is there's a lowercase g right there. Now, you say, is there two gods? Is the devil God like God's God? The devil is not the opposite of God. People think that. You see the arm wrestling picture, and you think the devil and God's playing checkmate and all this stuff. God created the devil. The devil does everything that God allows him to do, or things that, God could not even snap his fingers and do away with the devil. But listen to this. In whom the God of this world had blinded the minds of them which believeth not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. Now this is important. So what does the devil do? He blinds the minds of those that believe not. That's where that great hymn comes from. I saw the light. I once was blind. I saw the light. This is important to note. He blinds the mind of those that believe not. So unless the light shines through, you will not see. You will not see. Moving on. 2 Corinthians, you can stay there. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, Tucker, if you will. Chapter 11, verse 14. And listen to this one right here. Chapter 11, verse 14 of 2 Corinthians. And look, and no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Some translations say he may appear himself as to an angel of light. Paul tells us in Galatians, if an angel from heaven or if anybody else comes to you and preaches a gospel contrary to what I've preached or what we've preached, let that man be anathema. Let him be accursed. This is important to note because Joseph Smith, who knows who Joseph Smith is? Good, I'm proud that y'all don't know him. Let me tell you something. He's walking through the woods one day. He has a vision of two angels that come and talk to him. The angels tell him that the church is corrupt, that hell's prevailed against the church, and that everybody that thinks they're a Christian or not, and everybody's going to hell, and that you have the new tablets, and that you're the prophet, and that you're essentially like Jesus. Go and tell everybody. He goes and he tells everybody these things, and they start a new religion, and to this day is one of the biggest religions, the Church of Mormon, right? Mormon of Latter-day Saints, whatever you call it. That started from Joseph Smith, and he had the visions of angels. Now, the reality is that angel talked about everything that was contrary to the Word of God, and people say, he lied. I don't think he lied. I think he's seen these angels. Now, I think what happened was he was blinded by something that wasn't of God. But this is important to note, because everything that shines ain't gold. People say, I seen my grandmother sit at my bedside, and she died a couple years ago, and it was her ghost. And I'm not saying whether it was her ghost or not, but what I'm saying is you cannot be too careful. These seances, people appear to come to you as somebody you know, and it may not be. You got to be careful when you're messing with spirits. And we're going to get into that. Probably not today. Okay, good. Let me read this one right here. We'll come back to that. Go me back to Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. Now listen to this, and we're going to talk more about these enemies. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. And the Bible tells us here, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And you can leave it there for a second, Tucker. Now this verse right here packs in everything you need to know about your enemies, right? It says, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. So that's just number one. This is not a flesh and blood battle. This is not just some physical battle. But it says what? Against principalities. Now look, I want you to remember this. Write this down, underline it. Principalities is number one. Powers is number two. Rulers of darkness of the world is number three. And spiritual wickedness in high places is number four. Right? If you throw the devil in there as the first one. So you got 5 enemies just listed right here. Now we're not talking about, 1 John tells us our flesh is our enemy. The desires of our flesh. And he also tells us the world, as far as the evil system, is our enemy. So you have a lot of enemies, but what he's talking about here is principalities, powers, rulers of darkness. Spiritual wickedness. Now look at this. Let's go to the first one, principalities. This is an important one right here. The Greek word is arnika, roughly, that's how you pronounce that. And it talks about high rulers. It gives the idea of deity, authority, powers. Kind of goes with powers. Power, the Greek word, is exo, and that comes from the Greek word authorities. So principalities and powers kind of tie together in its high authorities. But what authority is it? Go to rulers of darkness of this world. And the Greek word there comes directly from fallen angels. And who are the fallen angels? Demons. Yeah, the devil and his demons, right? Because demons were angels. The devil was an angel, right? This is important to note. So a fallen angel would therefore be a demon. So when we talk about the rulers of the darkness of this world, it is demons, it is demonic, it is fallen angels. Now this is important to note. The spiritual wickedness there kind of ties into the fallen angels. So when you put it all together, principalities against powers, against rulers of the darkness of the world, and spiritual wickedness in high places, essentially what it's talking about is powerful, authoritative, fallen angels. And their weapons are influence. That's probably, I can't stress that enough, influence. People get influenced by, now listen, now what kind of influences are we talking about? There's an influence where you're demon possessed, right? And if you don't believe in demon possessions, you have not read your Bible. Demon possessions, actually I have it wrote down right here. There is 6 examples, actually 8 examples in the New Testament alone where people are demon possessed. People are demon possessed. We'll just go to one of them. I'm not going to go through all these for time's sake. Will you go to Mark chapter 5, Tucker, if you will, Mark chapter 5, verse 1 through 20. We're going to talk about these. We see this a lot, demon possessions, right? In the New Testament, many people were demon possessed. And to be honest, I've heard the case being made that a lot of, schizophrenic and bipolar and multiple personalities could very well be demon possessions. If you read Matthew chapter 4:3, you see that Jesus, when he cast out demons, it even lists schizophrenic people or people that wasn't sober-minded, and it wasn't meaning not high or drunk, but really more of like a grounded-minded. Our mind is such a delicate thing, but demon possessions are real, and they are in the New Testament, and they do not cease to exist. People think after the New Testament that just stopped happening. Let's look at this. And seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him. Verse 2. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, verse 3, and we're just going to go through these. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And this is the Beatitudes. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Verse 8, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Verse 10, blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And pay attention to these last few verses here. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so prosecuted they the prophets which were before you. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and be trampled under foot of men. Verse 14, you are the light of the world. And this is important. Remember this. You are the light. Remember when I was talking about darkness and in a world of demonic? You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Think not that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I am come not to destroy, but to fulfill. And you stop there for a second, Tucker. I think we might be in the wrong gospel. Are we in the Gospel of Mark or Matthew? That's Matthew right there, isn't it? I can't hear what he said. What did he say? That's good, because that's the beginning of one I wanted to do. Go to Mark real quick, Tucker, if you will. Because right before this, and I would continue on, Matthew's gospel, he goes on to finish the Sermon on the Mount, but in Mark's gospel, he goes on to talk to a man. I want to talk about this conversation. And you can skip the first few verses on Mark, so just go to Mark chapter 5 and verse 4-ish, if you will, Tucker. That's why I need a microphone. I hate microphones, though. I don't like them. I'm going to tell y'all, we might have to break this. Who wants to do this? Let me see. We might have to break this into a series. This might turn into a series. So we'll say this. I want to say this and talk about this word right here, and we'll be good. Now listen to this. Because that he had been often bound with what? Fetters. And what is that? Who knows what that is? Essentially like chains, like handcuffs, right? In chains. And the chains have been plucked assured by him, and the feathers broken into pieces. Neither could any man tame him. Now that seems pretty serious, doesn't it? That seems pretty serious. Verse 5. And it says, and always night and day he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. Verse 6. But when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped him. Listen to this. Verse 7. And he cried with a loud voice and said, what have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee by God that thou torment me not. Now this is weird to say to Jesus, but you got to understand, this man is dealing with demonic possession. And it says, and cried with a loud voice, verse 8. And it says here, for he said unto him, come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. And essentially that's what a demon is when it influences, or demonic, when it possesses you. It's an unclean spirit. Verse 9. And he asked him, what is thy name? And he answered, saying, my name is Legion, for we are many. Now what is legion? A legion is 1,000, isn't it? Or is it multiple thousands? It's 1,000 or a couple thousand, for we are many. So this man was not just possessed by one demon. This was a legion of demons. Verse 10. But you notice, look at this. And he besought him much that he would not send them away out of the country. Verse 11. Now there was there nigh unto the mountains a great herd of swine feeding. What swine? Pigs. Verse 12. And all the devils besought him, saying, send us into the swine, that we may enter into them. Verse 13. And forthwith Jesus gave them leave, and the unclean spirits went out and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down the steep place into the sea. They were about 2,000 and were choked in the sea. And you can stop there, Tucker. Now, the more of this is what I want to show you is, and like I said, there's like 7 or 8 I won't bore you with. But demon possessions are real. They happen. I got offered one time to go and is it exercise? I mean, what is the action verb in that? And you do an exorcism. I got offered one time to go cast they was like, hey, this person's possessed and I need help. And I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of ashamed to say I blocked that person. I blocked that person and never went. And that's a true story. I feel a little bit bad about it. But I've seen too many movies, man. I can't go off in there. I'll tell you what, I can't go off in there. You read in the book of Acts, whenever they try to cast out a demon, and the demon said, I know Jesus and I've heard of Paul, but who are you? And it says that they leapt out of that person into them and made them dig themselves. I'm not doing that. Not right now. Maybe in a couple of years I'll feel brave enough to do it, right? But I can't do it. But the reality is, demon possession is real. Demons are the fallen angels. They are what we war against. The demons know you. They know your temptation. They know what you like. They can't read your mind, but they know what you like. Kind of like Google or like YouTube or anything. You ever notice you start looking up stuff about something and then everything on your For You page is about what you was looking up? Or you can talk. Look, I'll tell you this. There's a Mexican guy that started working with us. And now my Facebook and my stuff just starts be like Spanish-speaking videos. I don't understand it. I don't even know how that happened. And I don't even understand it. The words or what they're saying. So that's a real illustration of how the demons do. They know you. They know what you like and what you don't like. They know the heart of man. They've been here since the beginning, since God created them. They know you. The devil knows you. He knows people. He knows our sinful nature. He knows us. And the reality is, a lot of people get demon-possessed. You see these movies, movie after movie, with demon possessions. When we think about our enemy, and we'll end there. Like I said, I'm going to just have to make this into a series. Y'all don't mind, do y'all? I was thinking so heavily about this because magic, who believes in magic? Nobody, right? Let me tell you, she believes in God, not magic. And to be honest with you, God's overall. But I want to talk about how, because there's, in the Old Testament, mediums. There's sorcery. There's black magic. And really, any magic, I believe, is black magic. You read in the Bible, you won't find any kind of like rainbow. It's always horrible, wicked stuff. You look in Saul in 1 Samuel, Saul pays a medium to bring back Samuel, and she sees an image, which some people say it was a foreshadowing or something. I don't know. Some people say it wasn't, but he comes back and he gets on Saul essentially. He's like, "Hey, don't be bringing me back. God's going to judge you and all this stuff." We're going to talk about all of that, but I did not understand how much that influences our world, and we're going to talk about that some more because we have to know these things. But let me leave you with this. Let me read this verse back to you. Verse 13, it says, "Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand." And next week we're going to jump into the armor of God. And maybe some more about this, but you need to understand you're in a war. You are in a battle right now. You and your family, you're in a battle. And you have an enemy. What did Jesus say about the devil? He comes to kill, steal, and what? Destroy. He wants to see you in ruin. He wants to see you back on drugs. He wants to see you separated from your family, everybody's sitting by and going to hell. He wants to see that. He hates you more than anybody else has hated you, just because you are made in the image of God. And until you know you have these principalities, you have these powers, the rulers of darkness, the fallen angels, they're tormenting you. They could be in here right now, talking in your ear. I wish Brother Ricky would shut up. Right? I wish Brother Ricky would just get on with it. Let me tell you something. Their desire is for you to be away from God and for you to be in bondage. There's no wonder depression, suicide rates, anxiety. Anxiety is a big one, right? Actually, I was doing some, anyways. But you look at the statistics on this. They are skyrocketing. Bipolar disorder. Just about everything is skyrocketing. Why do you think that is? People are depressed. People are anxious. People are worried to death about everything. And what it stems is you walk away from God. You don't pray like you ought when you're depressed and you don't even want to get out of bed and you're anxious about everything. So we'll talk more about this next week, and I hope that we can kind of take this apart a little by little. But one thing I want you to leave you with this week: be alert. The Bible tells us to be watchful, be sober-minded, be vigilant. And don't listen to the enemy when the enemy is telling you don't come back next Sunday. Or, man, I don't believe in any of this. Because a lot of this stuff is just wicked. Amen. I don't have Brother Mark here, so I guess I'll sing a tune. No, that's going to happen, right? If y'all want me to, we could just pray and be dismissed. If y'all would just join me in prayer. If y'all can't stand, will you stand? And I would just like to pray over us, or Tucker, would you pray? Would you pray over us?